Money can't buy you love, but it can at least buy you Twitter. You heard that right. A few weeks ago, Elon Musk, the world's richest man, did something only he can. He offered to buy all the shares of Twitter for $44 billion and convert it into a privately held company. In today's video, we are going to know two things primarily. Number one, why Twitter's business model has always fallen behind that of Facebook's, and how does Elon Musk plan to successfully monetize it finally. And in the second half of the video, we are going to see the third order consequences of changes Elon Musk plans to bring about on Twitter. So let's get started. Although Twitter has nowhere near the daily active users as Facebook has, its impact on the world as a social media platform is second to none. Then the obvious question is, why has this impact not translated into the kind of dollar value that other social media companies generate? The reason is quite simple: our human mind. Selling ads on Facebook or even Instagram for that matter is quite straightforward. On Instagram, you're looking at cool and pretty pictures of stuff that you think is nice, and then the algorithm will show you a picture of something else that they think you might think is nice. Similarly, on Facebook, the advertising model is, because we know every little thing about you, so we know you're looking to buy a car. Here's a car ad for you, or something similar. You get the point. But for Twitter's advertising model, they don't know much about you. The widely held convention is you're there on Twitter to share your thoughts through a tweet, which of course cannot be more than 280 characters. Hence, you see, the use case of Twitter is just not as advertising friendly as the other social media companies. And so, on one hand, it has a bigger impact on the world because you're there to have these politically important but not so politically correct discussions. And on the other hand, it's harder to monetize the platform. Currently, Twitter is making money from two sources: advertising and data licensing. While most of the advertising revenue is generated from selling promoted tweets, accounts, and trends, the data licensing part of the revenue stream allows partners access to historical as well as real-time data on the platform, that is from past tweets, of course. So in 2021, Twitter generated $4.5 billion from advertising and $570 million from data licensing. In total, $5 billion. During the same time, Facebook generated, guess what? $115 billion, and that too from advertisements alone. Of course, these numbers say very little about the company or the founder's ethics and moral values, as is evident from the frequent Senate hearings Mark Zuckerberg has to be a part of for issues ranging from privacy to election interferences. You see, there is a fine line that separates the company that runs for profit at any cost and a company that also runs for profit but using ethical means. So then, how does Elon Musk plan to monetize Twitter? Musk plans to generate revenue from subscriptions rather than advertising. He favors a subscription-based model over the advertiser funding model because it would then make Twitter less bound to advertiser pressure. Now, we've often heard the term advertiser pressure. Let's take 2 minutes to get this topic debunked. So, who are these advertisers? They are mostly brands or companies we engage with in our day-to-day lives. To get their brand name projected to a larger audience, these companies are willing to pay a certain fees as a marketing expense to social media platforms because that is where the eyeballs are. But then, what is of equal importance for these brands is to moderate the content shown in the platform as well, as otherwise it can possibly ruin their own brand image. Twitter, to its credit, has until now focused on content moderation to address disinformation head-on. For instance, early in the pandemic, Twitter had been proactive in moderating misleading content regarding how the virus spreads, unproven remedies, and treatments. So the interesting thing to look out for would be whether a switch to revenue generation from subscriptions instead of advertisements would make Twitter disinformation problems better or worse. So, the advertising to subscription model is the first change we are most likely to see. Now, let us quickly see 4 other major changes in Twitter 2.0 and their subsequent third order consequences. Number 1, the much talked about edit button. Elon Musk floated the idea of an edit button for the first time on April 4th, one day before disclosing his 9.2% stake buy in Twitter. The poll asked, "Do you want an edit button?" with the words yes and no wittily misspelled. More than 4 million votes were cast, with the majority of users supporting the idea. The only problem with having the edit button and the reason why it hasn't been implemented all these years is Suppose I smartly tweet, I love Deepika Padukone, and get all the likes and retweets only to later edit it to I love Kangana Ranaut. And boom, the most people who might have liked and retweeted my tweet earlier may not necessarily have the same opinion about Kangana Ranaut. What happens in such a situation? Elon Musk spoke about this problem in his recent TED interview. The edit button, in my opinion, would be a great addition. Number 2, removing all spam bots. If you're an avid user of Twitter like I am, you must have noticed marketing companies spamming the website with copy-paste tweets to make something trend. From TV news channels to political parties, all have used this practice to trend topics in their favor and then label it under marketing. Without getting political, few leaders in fact have designated Telegram groups to coordinate this kind of spamming. Links are automatically shared with the group members that enter the text of tweets as drafts, so all you have to do is sign in from different accounts and click tweet. This spam bots problem isn't hard to fix from a technical standpoint. But the only thing that might have refrained the current management from doing so is the fact that it will cause a reduction in the current user base numbers, which would then go on to negatively affect the Twitter stock and soon their own jobs too. Taking the company private would obviously remove the fear of any stock crash, and then these changes can quickly be implemented to improve the quality of discourse and make genuinely important topics trend again. Number 3. Making Twitter's algorithm public. When Twitter first came out in 2006, it had a simple timeline structure and tweets were displayed in reverse chronological order from the people you followed. This was great in the beginning, but as more and more people joined Twitter, it became nearly impossible to keep up with thousands of tweets one would receive on their timeline in a day. Because when you're following hundreds of Twitter accounts, it becomes nearly impossible to catch up on all the posts you might have missed after being offline for a period of time. This is why, as time went on, new algorithms were introduced to Twitter. But the biggest change happened in 2017 with the introduction of relevance model, which effectively replaced while you were away with in case you missed it. Now, some of Twitter's technology is already open source, which means it's publicly available for anyone to view, rework, and use for other purposes. But what Musk was essentially asking with this poll was whether the rules that computers follow to determine what you see in your Twitter feed should be public too. In the same TED interview, Musk said that he thinks Twitter users should be able to see if their post has been demoted or promoted so that there is no behind the scenes manipulation, and even suggested posting the code on GitHub so that people can look for errors and suggest changes. Now, although open sourcing Twitter's algorithms are more complex than it seems from the outside, but the move is definitely worth giving a shot. Number 4. Blue tick for all. After his Twitter takeover, Musk used the phrase authenticating all humans. Just like most things about him, this too Musk has left to everyone's imagination. But most likely what it means is changing the current blue tick verification system. And maybe, just maybe, Twitter will give out verified blue ticks to everyone who proves to be a human. How will they do it and what criteria will they use? That isn't clear till now. And number 5, Twitter Blue. Although Twitter launched this premium feature a year back, currently it's available to users from these 4 countries only. Twitter Blue is basically a monthly subscription plan which gives the members ability to customize their Twitter experience in these many ways. Maybe in the near future, as Twitter Blue spreads its wings, it will come to India as well. So now that we have almost come to the end of this video, you must be wondering, how could I have not talked about the free speech factor, which is being considered as one of the major reasons for this acquisition? Well, there is a reason for that. Till now, I've only shown the good things about Elon Musk, and he rightfully deserves it too. But then, not everything is as rosy as it looks. In the next video, which will be the second and final part of this Twitter series, I will be sharing with you some of the darker sides of Elon's past actions and their relation to this Twitter acquisition deal, of course. I'm sure that video will receive more hate than love because for an obvious reason, we humans tend to comment more actively when something is against our opinion than when something is in agreement with our opinion. But being a teacher, educator, my job is to show both sides of the coin with equal fairness. So do watch the concluding part of this video. I can promise you that it will be even more interesting and equally knowledgeable as this one. I will share the link below once the video is released. Until then, namaste, bye bye, and take care.